Hello and welcome to this episode by BCL India, where we try and unravel the regulatory space. That's debt and equity. We will discuss a lot more, many more interesting aspects. I'm your host, Pavan Sharma. I'm joined by two brilliant legal minds, two dear friends, two people with whom we've had the pleasure of working very closely over the last many years, hopefully for many more years to come. I'd like to welcome Parag Srivastava, partner, Bombay Law Chambers, and Vivek Tewary, partner, Trust Law. Thank you so much for taking the time out. So where do I begin? I mean, you both have had such prolific careers. So let's start with that. Right? What's your career been like? What's the inspiration behind taking up law?
So, there was no inspiration as such, as you know, in India, right? Like once you're finishing your 12th, you want to, try your hands at few things, write few exams, wherever it you get in, that's the thing. But one good thing for me, at least, which drove me a little bit towards law was that I come from a family of lawyers and judges, though that never interested me in doing law because I actually wanted to be an Air Force pilot. And I tried my hand at it because of some medical reasons, it didn't happen. So my neighbor, because he was also from the legal field, suggested that, their new national law schools have come up. You should try your hands at it and write the exam. And math was good, general knowledge was decent that point of time. Competition was much less. So I wrote the exams for some of the national law schools and got through couple. And to be honest, that's how I got into law because, whatever exams I wrote, this was probably the best I did. But of course, it's been a great journey after that, right? I'd been worked with a few law firms and then, 4 years back, we started our own law firm. And it's been a great journey in terms of, looking at a completely business side of law in some ways, where you are also practicing, but also trying to grow the practice and the business in certain ways.
Super. So Bombay Law Chambers is not just in Mumbai, it's also in Bangalore. It's got a
Correct. It's in Bangalore and Delhi.
It's fantastic. 3 locations. Vivek?
I actually took up commerce after 12 and I was in Xavier's, Calcutta at that point in time. And just around that time, about 3 years prior to that, Professor Menon had left Bangalore NLS and come to establish Calcutta NUJS. And incidentally, I met with somebody out there whose sister was preparing for law. And, I happened to go through those preparatory manual and everything. And it was a lot of multiple choice questions and, hardly any maths kind of thing. So then, I said, why not? Very similar to Parag's thing. I wrote the exam, and as he said, the competition was less at that point in time. I doubt if I can crack today. And then I got through NUJS in Calcutta. I think that has been the biggest turning point of my life. Because what happened is prior to that, you're in your own pool. You are from all the people from your state, very geographically close kind of thing you are in. So you don't really know where you stand nationally. And then when I entered law school, in our batch, 85 odd people, if memory serves me right, and it had a representation from all over India. So there were people from Jammu and Kashmir, there were people from Gujarat, there were people from, South. For the first time, I interacted with whole of India. And that melting pot creates a phenomenal thing. The other good thing that happened is that even though I was in Calcutta, my dad suggested that, you should stay in the hostel. And that made a huge difference in this thing, in growing there and, in generally absorbing different cultures and everything. From there, I graduated and started my career in Bombay. Incidentally, I know Parag from Bombay days. Parag had joined Trilegal at the same time I had joined Amarchand, the erstwhile one, where they were both together. From there, I moved to Bangalore, worked in Infosys, did a stint in Piramal. And then just about a year and a half back, I started my own practice along with, in Trust Law. So that has been the journey so far. I would call it an accident. It wasn't really it wasn't really a well thought out, structured part to, starting the career in law.
but a good accident nonetheless.
And most of the stories you'll hear are accident, but as Vivek said, it really opens your mind because of the kind of people you meet and the kind of courses. Because unfortunately in India, while a lot of focus is on science, social sciences also uh, develop your mind in a different way. So at least for me, coming from UP, mostly staying in small places, meeting the bunch of people I met, and and the courses, and opened my mind and horizon towards a lot of things, which probably wouldn't have happened if I didn't do law in Bangalore where I did here.
It is true. So my vested interest of getting you both together is, of course, to go a little deeper into the regulatory landscape of two areas, right? Equity, of course, you both have spent a lot of time in that space. Parag, at least I know I've been working with you closely on a couple of transactions, and debt, of course, Vivek, again, we've been working on a few transactions. So both from an equity and a debt space, trying to understand what does the regulatory landscape look like, what is it that we can foresee, how does the future look like? Let's start with equities for that matter, right? What are AIFs all about? SEBI, of course, is the regulatory body, but what's AIF?
So, before we get into AIFs, of course, it's a little bit of technical, thing in terms of, how various people come together, pool money, and then invest, right? So if you see, AIF as a concept is still very relatively new. The AIF regulations were set up in 2012, right? And the prior to that also, there was some regulation in it. But of course, India was not that big on investments. Of course, there were investments happening, but the sophistication was not there, right? But slowly, what happened was, more people started getting into this space. And the earlier regulations that were there, venture capital regulations of 1996 for the domestic funds, and foreign venture capital investment regulations of 2000, that was for foreign venture capital investors, right, were probably sufficient when they were, legislated. But because of the change in market and, different people coming in to the space with different strategies, right? Because while we have these broad terms of VC, venture capital funds, and private equity funds, while they're all deploying money towards in equity, their strategies are very different, correct? The purpose they are trying to serve is different from between different funds, right? Because some may have sectoral focus, some may have the stage focus, which the earlier regulations were actually inadequate, right? In terms of, and it hurt both the regulators in the sense of, they were not able to regulate properly, and even the players, because, there were some of the restrictions that were there did not work for private equity guys, because primarily those regulations were from a venture capital perspective, right? And another reason for, to be honest, in India, it's very, very critical, because from, time immemorial, we've had these schemes of people asking you to give money, and then they'll double it, triple it in X period of time, right? So Indian government has always been very particular about, if someone is taking your money, right, which also applies to NBFCs in some ways, right, then they want to regulate it, correct? Because of course of the systemic risk, and the public money, etc., gets deployed at this level. So from that perspective, to address some of these concerns, alternative investment funds, as a sector was introduced by SEBI in 2012, right? And of course, sophistication of people has changed over a period of time. If you see, now there are more people who are investing in these funds, because economy has done better, people have more money, people have more risk-taking abilities in terms of where they can invest, right? People want to move away from your traditional buying gold, or, putting money in FD, or some amount of listed, trading used to happen. But at least this one space was away from people, right? Investing in unlisted equities, correct? But people have started understanding this market because of more and more startups coming. You see, founders are making money, correct? They want to then invest in other startups. So from that perspective, AIFs have come up very well in the last 10, 12 years. I still believe it's in nascent stage, right? Because as the model develops, there'll be new things that will be coming into play. And to that extent, actually, SEBI is very open, correct? They have this regulatory sandbox mechanism where you can try new things. and they'll permit you or, ask you to change it or reject it if they don't think it's something relevant. So from that perspective, at least AIFs have grown leaps and bounds, and especially in the last 4 years, the number of registrations that we are seeing, right, in the AIF space is phenomenal, to be honest.
So, as far as say equity is concerned, now it's evolved over a period of time, but debt, so to say, has been there, I'm guessing, much longer than equity. How has that space evolved?
So, I wouldn't bore everybody with, going all the way back. I think, a good point to start from will be the October 2022 guidelines that RBI came out with. And where basically what the RBI did is that, it structured the entire NBFC space into scale-based, regulations. And it primarily defined 4 kinds of NBFC. So you have NBFC base layer, you have NBFC middle layer, you have NBFC upper layer, and then you have NBFC top layer, which incidentally is empty. And the government wants it to be empty. If I have to go back into the role NBFCs play, in a country like India, with the length and breadth that it has, banks per se cannot really penetrate every corner of the society. So you definitely need these private players who are out there and who are basically, offering services which banks are not. And they're also catering to a class which banks are not, because banks are very highly regulated. They accept public money. So, their outflow has to be very risk measured, has to be in very solid spaces. They cannot be allowed to, let's say, banks cannot give loan for land aggregation. Nowadays, even NBFC can't, but there was a time when NBFCs were doing that. Now, so once this 4 set came out, what it did was that it basically structured this entire play into these 4 categories. And now what it has happened from the regulator's point of view is that the regulator is very aware of what is the percentage at which each of them are playing, what is the significance that each of them bring to the entire financial market. And towards that, what we are noticing is that the regulator is coming out with more guidelines, is figuring out things and, add things along. In fact, I think in just about 4 to 6 months back, there was a paper by RBI calling peeling layers of the NBFC and everything. And what they have noticed is that after they have introduced these scale-based regulations, they have seen the sector improve. The return on equity, the return on asset has improved. The profitability has increased. Has increased. The gross NPA levels have come down. So, earlier, prima facie, if I have to define, there are 2 filters which were there. Either you were a systematically important NBFC or you were not, and either you were a deposit taking or you were a non-deposit taking. The permutation of all these led to about 4 to 5 kind of things. What RBI has done now is that, in the NBFC base layer, where usually your asset size is anywhere between 500 to 1,000 crores, they have introduced non-systematically important, non-deposit taking ones. Deposit taking ones do not fall in there. Then the middle layer is 1,000 crores upwards, where it is basically deposit taking, systematically important non-deposit taking, standalone primary dealers and others are there. And then, the upper layer is some identified 15 odd things, and top layer, as I told you, remains empty. I think, for anyone who wants to have a good grasp of the NBFC space, October 22 guideline can be a good start for you. You don't really need to go back into everything beyond that. It was like, RBI kind of cleaned everything up and came out with this. Instead of, frankly, getting into the nuances of each of them, I think it will be more interesting if we analyze what is happening recently in this space. And what we are noticing very clearly is that, RBI is coming tough on it. I think just about 6 days back, there was a news article that 4 NBFCs action was taken, including Navi FinServe, DMI Finance and everything. So you'll have to understand there has been a significant change in the mentality and in the approach to credit post-COVID. People, one was because of the need, because all the income sources stopped and everything. Credits are getting stretched. The other thing which is happening is that, and it has been a consistent theme in all the RBI talks and everything, is that we are seeing a lot of credit being drawn down for consumption, which was not traditionally the Indian mindset. People would not really go out and take a loan to afford a consumption. I think, the consumption was happening, but it was primarily in housing and vehicles. Both of which happen to be a secured category, because you have some collateral against it. What is happening now with buy now pay later kind of schemes and Coldplay tickets and everything coming along is that a lot of unsecured lending is happening. In fact, I was reading some interesting data that the maximum amount of personal loan is for people whose income level is below 50K, and for each of them there is at least 3 live loans which are running. The other thing which happened is, along with this, is interestingly in the gold loan space. See, gold has been obviously a traditional instrument for taking loan, and it's a secured lending, and people are usually happy to give you a loan against it. But what people don't understand or maybe don't appreciate as much is that, unlike in other asset classes, when the gold rates go up, the lending against it goes up. Because obviously you have more loan to value now available to you, right? And the recent set of actions which has happened, including on some of these gold loan players, is because people are not really doing the... So there are two things when you look at a gold loan, there are two things. One is the weight and the second is the purity. The purity aspect is not being taken care of as much. And, and this space has grown at a phenomenal, growth rate. So what is happening is there is, people are lending out more as compared to what is the value of the collateral they are getting. And with the gold rates touching all-time high, and with all the wars and everything happening and gold becoming dearer, what RBI is noticing is that the players are not really complying with things. So if you see the last 6-7 months, the way RBI has been taking action, pretty much every month there has been some action or the other on some NBFC, some space. JM Financial, there was an action.
Even Bajaj Finserv, there was an action.
Bajaj Finserv, there was an action. So what RBI is basically coming out and saying is, you're required, go and do disciplined growth. Don't try to, in fact, these are the exact words of the governor saying that, don't chase growth at all cost. The other thing that, some of these MFIs, the microfinance institutions, is that, they are charging exorbitant rates. And that is not something that the RBI really wants. Because see, what is happening is that this entire space has suddenly opened up with the introduction of fintech players. Today you're getting your loan on Google, you're getting your loan on PhonePe and things like that, right? So, and co-lending models are emerging in return. So the growth is very hyper. At the same time, RBI is also acknowledging the fact that, the borrowers who are probably getting into the space are not so well versed. They're not like corporate borrowers who know everything about the entire thing. So with that mindset, I think, you're only going to see more regulations coming to this space. Though one interesting development has been self-regulation, regulating organizations. The RBI is coming out with that. It is giving out licenses. It gave out in the fintech space. Correct. It gave out in the MFI space. So what it is also doing is that, it is creating that entire parameter, trying to, bring in organizations who are doing the self-regulation. And again, this has been something publicly that the RBI has stated, that when they discover an issue with one or two players, they try to deal with it bilaterally. But when they see that, the space is having some kind of, people are becoming adventurous, not following the guideline, that is when they go and come out with some new set of regulation for the entire space. But I think, as it becomes more prolific, I'm fairly certain that, it is going to get more and more regulated. It is, regulations are going to increase, disclosures are going to increase, and And I think this is something people should be very mindful about, those who want to enter this.
And maybe it's also these regulations that give the investors confidence, right? Now, if you, like you said, equity, the space itself has evolved. You have regulations in place, but it's giving a lot more people confidence to invest.
Correct. But, there's a slight difference between, AIFs and, NBFs, because see what Vivek is talking about is more in terms of, the borrowers in the space, right? AIF is more because, generally if you see, everyone is a sophisticated party, right? Because there are certain requirements, correct? Even in terms of who can invest in an AIF, right? There are certain net worth requirements, correct? So if I have a net worth of 1 crore, 2 crores, 5 crores, 8 crores, means I understand finance little bit. There's an assumption, correct? So actually on the AIF side, to a certain extent, there's an argument that at times there's over-regulation because the parties involved, right, are sophisticated and know the commercial risk that they are taking. Unlike in NBFC, right, like he said, my salary is 50, but I want to buy a 1.5 lakh iPhone, correct? 3 times my monthly salary. Again, their aspirations, their desperations, right? So from that perspective, they can be manipulated, right? And accordingly, in one of these cases, the news report said some people ended up paying 60% interest per annum, right? Which is humongous, right? Insane. So from that perspective, I think with AIFs, while it's very well regulated, right, there have been arguments that, especially, and SEBI has done it, they've come up with a concept of a large fund where, minimum amount is invested is 70 crores, etc. So, they have a lower set of regulations because if someone is willing to put or is capable to put so much money, they are also capable of analyzing. That's the assumption of analyzing the risk.
So do you think self-regulation would be more prevalent in the AIF space? Because if people understand risks, they're able to regulate themselves. So should we...
But see, India is still a developing economy, correct? So I think I still agree that there should be regulations, right? Or maybe over a period of time, when we reach a certain stage or level, correct? Maybe there can be some pullback by the regulators, but until then, it's very, very important. And, of course, people keep coming up with new innovative structures, which,
You're being polite when you say innovative.
Correct. Yeah.
No, but I think the regulators in India are superb.
I agree.
They are superb. People can say whatever, they feel that, for doing every small thing, why is it that, I have to comply with so many things and all of that. But if you see the financial turmoil, which has been there, especially after ILFS, I think ILFS, and in spite of this, cases like ILFS and all happen, right? So, or, this entire, in this globally connected world, things which are happening outside of your border, how they're impacting, or, crypto and everything. I think both the regulators, especially RBI and SEBI, have been just phenomenal. They have been proactive. They have come out. They have this thing, because if you think about it, it has been a series of incidences. There was ILFS, there was demonetization, then COVID hit, and RBI especially, SEBI as well, has been very proactive. Like one of the things that they did when COVID hit is that they increased the loan to value in the gold space, and they said till March 31st, 2021, if I'm correct, you can give almost up to 90% or something of this thing. Now there were players who were doing it beyond 21 as well. Okay, so then and then RBI came out, did heavily, got on them heavily and everything, and because of this, they've been at the front of the curve. There is no doubt.
I think two very proactive institutions.
Yes, very.
And see, it's not that, like, for example, when news come out like this, right? When this 4 NBFCs action against them came out, there was a lot of debate. RBI is trying to curb fintech. They're trying to curb innovation and startups, etc. But first of all, see, whichever space you are, whether you're a startup, mature company, or late stage company, you have to follow law of the land, correct? And it's not that they do it one day, they wake up and they say, let's ban these or whatever, let's stop their business. There have been correspondence for months, correct, where they have asked these guys to, answer, explain some of the things they have done, etc. And after that, when there is not enough explanation, like similar with Paytm, right? It's not that it happened overnight. It was a 3-4 year process, right? There were other fines imposed. And then at one point of time, when they realized that governance was still not improving, they went ahead and take those. And drastic actions are required. Otherwise, uh, a lot of people will take things for granted. And, here money is involved, public money is involved. It has to be.
And it's made to feel that these are autocratic decisions that have happened randomly, but there's a lot of thought that goes behind, a lot of process that goes behind it. And with that, with both of you having spent so much time in your respective domains, what are some of the interesting matters that you may have handled, or any interesting anecdotes that come to mind? Of course, no name basis here, but anything that you can share with us.
So Vivek will have more on that front. Yeah.
I wouldn't really give anecdotes, but there are some life lessons that I learned when I was, in the space. And the first thing is that, let me put it this way. What do you think is the difference between the financial services industry and any other industry? Automobile or a steel or anything? Any guesses?
Okay.
So let's say, if you're a car maker, what is your input? Your input is plastic. Your input is metal. Your input is tech, and the end product is car. Or you are you're a stationery maker, so your input is paper, pulp, this thing, and you come with notebook. Financial services is one space where the input is money, the output is money.
That's true.
Yeah. So what happens is that, when there is crunch in liquidity, you get squeezed from all sides. You don't have your input raw material, and you don't have any output to give. That's one thing that I learned. The second thing that I learned was that March 31st falls for everybody. So, it doesn't matter whether you have taken a loan where the interest rate is monthly or quarterly or half yearly or yearly. It will always fall on March 31st, and it is not only for you, it will fall for all lenders. So, and that is why, I'm sure Parag has also had those days. That is why March 31st are crazy. These nuances around how money works, or for example, one of the things that I learned when I was in this space is that, when you disburse money to somebody, the ultimate consumption doesn't happen then and there. The money actually travels at least 8 to 9 hands before it eventually gets consumed against a good or a service or something like that. So, and that is why, they say, right, money should always be rotating. They shouldn't really, it shouldn't really restrict. So yeah, I mean, these were some 2-3 interesting things that I learned. The other one I learned was that, and this is something I tell all my startups is, whoever I work with is, raise money when you don't need it.
Yeah.
Okay. The market is more than willing to give you. Okay. When you actually need it, it becomes very difficult. So raise money when you think that you're in a position of strength, and you may feel that, hey, I don't need the round, still go ahead and raise the round. It will help you. So these were, I think, some 2-3 large principles that I learned during my time.
Right. Again, I don't have such interesting stories, but over my course of my career, what I have realized is, sometimes we lawyers end up complicating a lot of things which are not required, especially, in some transactions, right? So I think that what I have learned over the years is that you need to understand the pulse of the transaction, the pulse of the parties, and then accordingly act, right? So for example, if I'm negotiating for a company, right, maybe in early stage in Series A, which is the second or third round for the company, correct, and the company desperately needs funds, right, I will negotiate the document very differently because, the company still has a lot of, things to cross, etc. And there, getting the money into the company's account is the most important and critical thing. But of course, if I'm doing this for a pre-IPO company where the type of stakeholders have changed, correct, there I may end up negotiating the document very, very differently, right? So I think, and because I end up now doing a lot of startup related work, I think the idea is to not make the deal complicated, because see, unfortunately, and again, it's because we are the lawyers, we represent both the sides, right? What happens is, because it's the marriage of two parties, right? They're just coming together. If you create that mistrust between the two parties at such an early stage, the relationship doesn't get off on a very good note. And because we are the people who manage all the parties, the communication happens through us. It's very important how you communicate, how you're trying to solve a problem, to what extent you're psyching your client, correct? Because some of these people, they are not that, they don't understand this. Of course, they know their business very well, but no, these are legal terms, documents, complicated, the way it's written, they don't understand it, right? So it's very important for us also in terms of how much we psych them out, because we'll hear cases where the founder will come and say, the investor will institute a false case against me, take away all my shares, right? In that case, I say, then if that's what mistrust, don't take money from this person, correct? Because of course it's their business, right? They do this day in, day out, they are also investing. If they have to do this, then no one will take money from them if they do it once, correct? So I think to that extent also, it's very important that how we operate with our clients and how we educate them about the possible scenarios that can come up.
And also what we have seen, been in practice lesser than both of you, but what we've at least seen over the last decade is there's a lot of maturity that's come into equity investing, at least. I think the terms have become, I'll not say business friendly, but it's for the benefit of both. Like you said, it's to create trust so that the transaction can move forward.
Yeah. And now there's too much material also, if you see, right? Like when we graduated, to be honest, I didn't even know half the things, in terms of what I was going to practice, right? So everything was new. Now when these kids come from college for internship and all, they are already aware of concepts, what's happening in the market, what is Byju's, who are they raising funds from. In our times, at least I had no idea about these things. So I think that the knowledge or the material is also there actually for people.
And I think that'd be a good time to also touch upon technology, right? Now, with tech and with so much knowledge, so much information already available, how are you seeing the legal profession change? Is tech influencing or aiding a lot of work that you're doing? Are you seeing that?
On a lighter note, earlier when we started work, or before that, when a question was asked, you would go to the book and try to find the answer. Now first is a Google search or on a chat GPT search, and then people go to the books from there just to validate that answer, right? So things have changed, but at least on the technology side, of course, especially artificial intelligence in the legal space, right, is developing. There are some new very good products. But even before artificial intelligence, now the whole market is changing because of that. Earlier also there was enough technology that was used for law, right? Because see, for example, for us, it's very important to have a repository of case laws, right? Or a repository of laws. In India, it's very tough to, maybe, you can find the key laws or the main important laws, but there'll be a lot of circulars, local directions, etc., which is not easy to, access, correct? So there were portals, etc., which had come up where, there was a repository of cases. You can find a lot of these local, laws, etc., in one place, because otherwise it's impossible, the way Indian legal system works, correct? There are lower courts, high courts, Supreme Court, to know what is going on, and it's not possible to go and physically search all these. So there was already technology at play, but of course now it's coming in terms of work also, right? Where you can actually, the turnaround time can really improve, right? Because there are a lot of work that as lawyers we do, which is data mining, data capturing, correct? Those kind of things now, technology can help you. Of course, it's not going to take away the job, but it's just going to assist the people in doing those things much faster, which, works for everyone. Like as we were discussing, work-life balance is not very good for lawyers. Hopefully this will, improve people's life in terms of, spending time on more analytical and critical things rather than just, more, for a lack of better word, doing clerical work. Yeah.
See, tech is eating all industries, so law is not far. In fact, I was reading somewhere that, one of the, what are the most probable jobs which AI is going to take away, and I think from law 2 came out paralegals and associate first year, second year, something like that. See, where tech is definitely going to assist is drafting, and I think lawyers are seeing that there will be a There will be a fees crunch in that space as well. It's already happening. It's going to happen more. I think, for you to stand out as a lawyer in this space is that I'm hoping that deal making will not be taken away by tech. And by deal making, I'm just going to touch upon what Parag was saying a while back. What is deal making? Deal making is basically bringing all the people at the same space, right? Where they are doing and doing a deal and everything. And I keep on saying this to everybody in my team. I said, if you think you will do a one-sided deal for your client, eventually it is going to come back and bite your client. A deal which is fair to all is the best deal. Okay. And so, if the counterparty is asking for something unreasonable, fine. But if the counterparty is asking something reasonable, which you yourself ask when you are in their shoes, give it up. There's no need to have a conversation then and all of that. So I feel that deal making is a little far away because, deal making is not purely the law and the documents, right? It is reading the egos. It is, suddenly there has been a very bad meeting. Negotiations have gone haywire. People are not talking to each other. How you make that entry, how you bring people back to the space. So that will be there. But what is going to happen more and more, and it is a little unfortunate also for the new generation of lawyers, is that as he rightly said, see, usually what is it that you look at once you're researching a topic? You go to the Bare Act, then you go to the, the commentary around it. You go to the legislature at the time of lawmaking to see what was the intent, what was the discussion. All of this is being subsumed by simply articles on the net and everything. And what people are not understanding is that the person who has written the article has done this research.
Yeah.
Correct? So, and it's important that you frame your viewpoint about reading the law. Okay, it says like this here there is a proviso and everything, and then see what the world says and not let, the world first influence your judgment about this thing. That unfortunately is happening. We are seeing it everywhere. So that is going to get impacted. I think those days are over where for simple agreements, you could charge a decent amount of fees, get it done and things like that. In fact, platforms are already coming which are harmonizing your fundraise, which are harmonizing your debt raise and things like that. Now, the adoption is going to only keep on increasing. It is not going to reduce. So then the question you need to ask yourself is that, what do I bring on the table? What you bring on the table is deal making.
Correct.
When okay, parties have an intent, there's a commercial handshake. How do I navigate this deal to closure? And I think, that is where lawyers play the most significant role, because unlike, I used to say this to, all my colleagues at Piramal, all my business folks, that legal is one function which comes from the time of term sheet till the time of disbursement.
Correct.
See, risk will come in between, do a risk analysis and come out. Okay. Or tax will come in between, do a tax analysis and come out. Treasury will get involved at the time of disbursement. But legal is one function which stands shoulder to shoulder with the business. Right from the day that you're exploring the deal till the day that you do the disbursement, and thereafter as well in terms of your compliances of conditions, subsequents and things like that. Now, because you have this vantage point of being through the deal cycle, it is important that you understand how to navigate it. Okay. How you give assurance on one side, how you get something for your client, give something to the other party, and I think that is what is going to keep lawyers being apart. And that becomes even more important in our profession because ultimately, we are like doctors, right? Very, very personal with the client. Once you build a trust, correct. I have clients who will not sign unless I tell them that, okay, go ahead. Not that they're expecting me to read I obviously read every line, but they're not expecting me to take out everything. But, they just want that eye to run over the things and everything. So if you become a deal maker, if you're able to give solutions where people are stuck, you will be valued. If you're just going to give them what the law says, first of all, it has been an unfortunate development, but at least from the time that I started practice, now people aren't that interested in knowing what is the nuances of law, what is that. I think speed has taken prominence over everything else. But yes, I think, solutions and deal making will continue to see you through.
And are you seeing that shift even in the way young lawyers are being trained? Are they focusing on the human element? I'm sure they go through training like the way we do in CA, right? So in CA, you have articleship, so you get in touch with clients from very early days in your career. So you try to appreciate the human element of the profession. That is why we are still studying for CA. We are not even qualified. How does it work in the legal field? Do you start working after you qualify? Is there articleship before? And do you see a shift in the education itself?
So see, of course, there are internships, but it's not mandatory, unlike, for CAs with an articleship. But, to gain experience, because that makes you more, as I said, still the way education is, because, and there has to be a distinction between practice and education, because the assumption should not be that everyone who's doing law will do what we are doing, right? Which is commercial law, correct? Law has multiple facets around it, right? And that's why I still believe it's very important in at least colleges to teach the first principles, right? Unless I know the first principles of law, it's very tough for me to then apply it later. So I think on the education side, of course, they are also using more technology, there are better presentations, there more access to wider set of, literature around this because of the online thing. Earlier, there were books which are very expensive, which you could not afford, right? Now, because of ebooks, etc., those things are becoming affordable to that extent. So on the education side, of course, there is different, maybe Vivek knows, but I've been very out of touch from the, it's only what I speak to the interns or young associates. But the way, interns generally don't get exposure to clients. They help us more in terms of, doing research or, preparing certain data sets. But associates, we encourage them to, speak to clients at an early stage so that, they understand in terms of, because, unless you speak to the person, you will not understand their requirement that well, right? So we encourage them to speak to the clients, etc. at an early stage. See, from a technology perspective, because adoption is still low, right? We have been trying a couple of products, like as Vivek said, for, the idea is if I can generate drafts very quickly, correct? Because a lot of drafts, especially, in whether on equity or debt side, the first draft is more fill in the blank because we all have our templates, right? Ready, correct? Maybe because of commercials, some clauses will change here, but most of it is what is the investment amount, what is the loan amount, interest rate, coupon rate, dividend rate, etc. Exit in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Most of the exit provisions will be similar. And depending on the number of investors, there can be some permutation combination that will apply. But for that also we have templates, right? Single investor, single tranche, 2 investors, multiple investors, right? But still, when a person generates, he still goes through the entire agreement, etc. So some of these things, if we can, generate the draft quickly, correct? So then the person can focus on, as Vivek said, managing the deal, closing the deal, and focusing on the right set of things. Otherwise, it takes people a good couple of days to, generate a draft. So I think on some of those fronts, it'll definitely help. But associates are still, I don't think the young lawyers are using technology to that extent that, they've stopped working. Because ChatGPT and all, while people have tried generating drafts, it still has its, shortfall.
But say eventually, maybe drafting, could that morph into a very different subject, right? I'm not sure.
No, because I'll give you one example, right? I tested this product. So we use this thing called Redline, right? Where if you have sent me a draft, I make the changes, I send you a draft, which will show what changes I have made. This technology shows, of course, the changes that have been made, but then there's a separate column comes, which says, has it changed the meaning of what it was there, right? So of course, this is in nascent stage, so some of it, but it's very interesting, so that maybe it will cut down my review time also if I can trust it to that extent. See, again, but there are nuances hidden, etc. So you have to read it. But still, some of these things can really, increase the speed at which we work, and then probably, reduce the mistakes that happen, because of human intervention and focus times, etc. So,
I'll actually take it because your question was, are the associates being trained differently? So I'll actually say two very commonly heard sentences in law, sayings in law is, one is law is a jealous mistress. And the second is that, you know, the one who's right doesn't win, the one who tells the better story wins. So, see, what I'm trying to say here is that one thing I'm sure he has, and I think any lawyer worth his salt or her salt was anywhere today has done a lot of grunt work.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely crucial. Okay. I remember early days, Amar Chand, I used to be in, just doing due diligences.
Yeah.
Okay. And that has reduced for sure. Whether it is will have a positive impact or a negative impact, time will tell. I think it is important that young lawyers do the grunt work.
Yeah.
Okay. It has always been the case. What is happening is that, the opportunity of interacting with the client, which probably, an associate was getting at the 5th or a 6th year, they do interact with the clients in the first, second year itself, but, they're probably interacting with, for small parts of the deal, not the entire deal, running the deal. That has advanced for sure.
Yeah.
Multiple reasons for it. One, as he said, is deal making has become standard. Okay. There is a term sheet, you will do a due diligence, and especially, the other thing is that, capital has started coming in small tranches. Not every deal is a Series E, Series F, and all of that, right? You're doing angel round, you're doing small rounds where people are not doing so much grunt work. It is just a commercial handshake. People understand the business, they want to do it. So that definitely has happened for associates. I think people are getting, which is a good thing. They're getting that exposure in the second or third year to interact with clients. So that's a good thing. But I think it is absolutely important that you appreciate as to why a client comes to you. See, you go to a doctor, you go to any professional because you expect them to be an expert in their area, right? So how do you gain that expertise? You gain that expertise by doing the grunt work, by making it muscle memory, by doing it over and over and over and over again till the time you can wake up from your sleep and dictate the document out.
Correct.
I feel that part is going to become more difficult, and it is courtesy the technology. Whether we are going to morph into something where drafting will not happen at all, it will be unfortunate, frankly, because lawyers are known for their words.
Correct.
Vocabulary, the way you speak, your usage of word,
Yeah, and you can change entire meanings by shifting 3 words from here to there.
Here to there, right? So, and if that goes away, then, I think a significant part of the profession will get impacted. So, yeah. So, I think you don't really need to train them differently. I think anybody who is coming up, who, they are using the tech and everything, I think what you need to keep on reminding the younger generation of lawyer is go back to the Bear Act, go back to the commentary which happened in the parliament, read something outside of the internet as well, which is not there. The other thing which is happening and which I suspect is going to happen, it is happening with few clients and all. They're actually taking a declaration from you that you're not using ChatGPT.
Me? Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I have not come across
Yes.
this, yeah.
The reason being that what happens is that, unfortunately, many times you are just putting confidential data.
Of course, correct.
On the and not everybody is smart enough to mask the names and everything,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So what their fear is that you're not uploading their data on the platform. So I think and this is coming everywhere. I think this is a persistent theme with AI. Whose data are you pulling out? Copyright.
Correct.
You're taking New York Times article. What are you doing and everything, and it is going to become more and more significant. So yeah, I mean, great tools, all of them. As lawyers, if we don't use it, it is foolish of us. But you need to see whether it is curtailing your skill set or not. So I think that is something which I'm a little concerned about for, I think, younger generation of lawyers.
So on that note, what are the future plans for both Bombay Law Chambers as well as Trust Law. Right? What plans do you have? Of course, there's Diwali, right? Other than the Diwali plans, right? Maybe a year or 2 years, are you planning to expand into new regions, new areas of practice?
I mean, I'll
Sure,
go first.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's a collective decision of where you are going and everything, but we are very clear that we want to be focused on smaller players for multiple reasons. One is that there is too much competition with the larger ones, and we aren't as established a name as some other firms are. The second thing is that we see a lot more appreciation and a lot more gratitude in working with these players, and it actually feels good when somebody goes from a from a proof of concept to a angel to a series, and then eventually hopefully IPO and sustaining it. We are present in Bangalore, Delhi, and Chennai, and in keeping with our philosophy, we want to next go to let's say a Hyderabad or a Pune or something. We wouldn't really want to target either Mumbai or any of these large markets. So yeah, I mean, our thing is we want to see also, in terms of practice area, we are not as expanded as we would like to be. So instead of probably, going and looking for more geographies, we would like to add more practice areas because law in that way is very unique because, the more practice areas you add, it is like cradle to grave, right? And you wouldn't want the client to go out for something, and you should be able to provide all the services involved. So one of the things that we are missing is tax, so we would like to add that. Not as many niche areas, let's say like competition or things like that, but I think some regular areas like IP, tax and things like that should be there with you. So we would like to add more practice areas because we would like to go deeper in our client engagement. That helps. And in terms of geography, we definitely would like to, we are looking to open Hyderabad. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah. So, very similar thoughts. Again, we really like the space we are in, correct? And so from a geography perspective, I think we are good right now because we are in Bombay, Bangalore and Delhi. Right? Of course, Hyderabad is something that is on our mind as well, but I'm still not sure when to go there or, when to sort that because there's a good ecosystem coming up in Hyderabad, to be honest, right? We have some clients there. There are a lot of startups coming. To be honest, at one point of time, people, especially in this, space used to look at Hyderabad with a little bit of, doubt, because the way market was, there were certain things that have happened where, there was not confidence. But again, now we see that changing, right? But from a practice area, as Vivek correctly said, right, the idea is not to expand into everything and become a full service law firm. At least that's not the plan right now. And we have done a little bit of growth in the last couple of years. So we started as a firm which was primarily doing equity and some amount of structured debt. And we wanted to serve this ecosystem. So we got like the tax partner. So last year we got a tax team because, then in a transaction or, in some cases, we can give holistic advice to the client. And recently, we also added the fund formation practice, right? So that then we have the entire, at least this, capital ecosystem or funding ecosystem, from setting up of funds, whether equity, debt, to doing the transactions, to, the exits, where of course your tax plays, one of the most important roles, right? Like, as I keep saying, we negotiate SPA so much. Eventually, what the client cares is how much tax I'm paying. Indemnity and all is all theoretical, whether it will happen or not. Tax is very real. It is going to happen.
That is true. I'm banking on that. Our practice depends on tax. So, right. So, on that note, to end the conversation, I know you're a voracious reader. I know you're a deep thinker. We've had some conversations. Anything that you'd want to leave with us? Any thoughts? Any books you'd want to recommend? Anything? So
there are a couple of books. Unfortunately, I've become very bad with names. Right? So I can. There's this book called, Barbarians at the Gate. There's a concept called leverage buyouts, right? Where, private equity funds come, acquire a company through loans, and then use assets of that entity to, service the loan, etc. And grow the company. So, the first leverage buyout that happened in US in around 87, 88, of this company called RJR Nabisco. It's like a thriller, it's a true story, but it's like a thriller on how it happened. Then there is a book, very good book actually on debt, which, you makes you question the principles of debt itself. I'll give you the name of the author, but he starts with that, and I've not finished that book because it's a heavy book. See, these are heavy books, right? Because there are a lot of theoretical also, where he says the assumption should not be that debt will always be repaid. It's a wrong assumption that you are entitled to receive the debt back, right? So it's a brilliant book, actually, to be honest. Whatever I've read, and some friend recommended me who actually used to work in the debt practice of a merchant only. So when I started reading, I'll give you guys the name, but phenomenal book to read.
Yeah, but I mean, see, debt getting repaid, but that is the reason, right? Why we say that equity is the riskier of the,
Correct.
investment.
Correct.
And if you see the space as well, I think even for specialists and experts like who have been in this space for so long, you do 10 equity investments, 6 or 7 will go belly up.
Yeah.
2 or 3 will just about survive, and 1 will be a superstar. That is not the equation in debt. I think that you took collateral. So if you do 10 investment, 2, 3 will go belly up.
Correct.
And almost 7 of them will give your money back. But that is also the beauty of it. If let's say I'm giving you debt at 12%, okay, no court in the world will give me 25 percent on it, right? If you do phenomenally well, nobody is going to give me that. At the most, the court will give you 12% and another 1 or 2% for the default. That may happen. So, your upside is also restricted, unlike, equity where, if you invested in Tesla,
Mr. Ratan Tata, right, before he expired, he had invested in this company, which is a stockbroker, like similar to Zerodha. His returns have been 235x in 7 years.
Correct.
Actually, on this principle, what he said, right, that most of the companies go belly up in equity. There's a book called Power Law, right, which is what VCs follow, right? That out of 10 investment, 1 investment will give me return for 100 of transactions, right? They call it Power Law. It's a very interesting book, actually.
Any interesting thoughts you'd want to leave us with?
I'm not a voracious reader. Though I have been reading a book right now. It's called The Politics of Time. Interesting book. It basically takes you through the ages and says how when we were an agrarian economy, the world was, you pretty much followed the sun and the harvest seasons and everything. And then how Henry Ford came in, put up this, assembly line where every guy had to be there on the assembly line, otherwise it will not start. And therefore it brought in the construct of a fixed time model. And then again, now we have shifted now to a world, especially post-COVID, where it has become very individualistic time. And it just it basically takes it, some interesting thoughts there. Amazing realization that of all the social media, I think YouTube is the least negative.
There is a time on it, but you can genuinely learn from it.
In fact, it is actually a very positive social media. If you read, other social media is more, is a little on the trajectory of, negatives and, creating insecurities and things like that. I think YouTube can be phenomenally used. Not really anything.
YouTube, there's this whole thing, right, that a professor is explaining you stuff. It's a very complicated thing, right? Then someone else is explaining you. It again is a maze of things. And then an Indian YouTube guy will explain the same thing you in 4 minutes in the simplest language so that you can understand. So actually he's right. YouTube is actually very, very informative and
super. So on that note, thank you both so much. Thank you for spending your time with us. I hope we get to work closer, get to know each other much better in the years to come. Wishing you both a very happy Diwali and wishing everyone a very happy Diwali from us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.